This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Welcome back onto the Research Talks podcast here from Stockbox with Alan Green. Alan, how are you doing this week?
Very good, thanks, Mark. It's sun shining for the third day in a row. I mean, I'm pinching myself. It's actually it's an illusion, but no, the sun's shining third day in a row and looking good. So it's been nice to get out and enjoy some of the sunshine. Off to Master Investor.
Oh yeah.
So looking forward to meeting up with a few people there. Should be a busy day and. Of course, Mother's Day on Sunday. So I hope you've got your bunch of flowers or cards or whatever on the way.
Just making a note.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Well, actually, I've got a son now who needs to do something for his mother, but he's probably too young to do it. So maybe I'll have to do two things this year. Well,
you'll have to, yeah. Well, I think Mrs. Fairbairn might look very upset
if Baby Jew didn't provide something.
Her first Mother's Day card from her son. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, indeed. Well, hopefully it is. The weather does continue because it's lovely, actually. Yeah, in the sun, it's really nice. It is still chilly in the air, but in the sun, it's beautifully warm. I was able to take a bit of that yesterday afternoon outside, which is really nice. So the daffodils are out for sure over here. They're all over on the streets. It looks very spring-like, so hopefully we're going into that time of year.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, it's looking the same here too. I mean, we've had so much rain here that, of course, everything's very green. So I'm sure now if the weather warms up a bit, we get lots of sun. It's everything's going to go crazy and grow. But certainly loads of daffodils around, and it's feeling spring-like, which is always good.
Indeed it is. And of course, the markets are also got a bit of a spring in their step. I mean, major indices all making record all-time highs. Crypto up at its all-time high. I think even breaking all-time high. I think.
Yeah.
Gold at all-time high, breaking all-time highs. 2166 today. Doesn't really add up. You kind of think what's going on. Gold normally is up when everything comes down. Maybe it's a bellwether for a little bit of a correction in March. I don't know, but everything seems to be breaking all-time highs. So.
well, somebody once said to me, if there are conflicting signals in the market, get out, because so if gold's at the high and everything else is an all-time high, that's kind of a contradiction.
It's a contradiction, isn't it? Which might make
normally
you wonder.
See. So yeah, but I think. I noted Oliver Friesen from Gold Metal said yesterday, we're seeing gold at all-time highs and still resource stocks are just bumping along off their lows. And we're certainly seeing, I think you and I would agree, we're seeing a lot more activity in the small resource stocks at this time of year than we did this time last year. So that is a good thing. So I think perhaps that disconnect is starting to reconnect again, and we're seeing that potential valuation gap start to close, and certainly looking at the response, we're now seeing resource companies make two announcemements. You're seeing a proportionate response to good news, as we've seen this morning with Kavango, and of course yesterday and today, of course, with Cadence Minerals, which we're going to touch on again shortly. So,
well, absolutely, We're going to talk about both of those today. Of course, Kavango releasing news this morning about getting into small scale, but gold production and revenue, and wanting to ramp that up, and of course, Cadence with their update. But you bring us up to speed on all of that. We'll also catch up on VVV Resources, but we want to start with a blockchain sort of tech company, Valereum, who I don't think we haven't spoken about before, and they were first on an interview with us just earlier in the week. So we want to start with the crypto side of it, or the tech side of it, then move into the miners. So yeah, Valereum, Alan.
So Valereum blockchain, epic code VLRM. The shares are traded on Aquis, of course, currently trading at 7p, gives a market cap of 7.2 million. Shares are traded as high as 9.45p on the year and as low as 2.85p. And the more I look at this company, the more it resonates with what I've been hearing at meetings I've attended in London over the past, really since the start of the year. And that is that tokenization is coming to the markets, and it will change everything. And JP, if you're listening, I know you would very much agree with me on that. So Valerium was set up to unlock capital and create value in tokenized digital markets. In other words, its mission is to transform global finance in a far-reaching and impactful way. So, of course, at the moment when we trade shares, we trade we can either trade them in DMAT format, or we can trade them with the old-fashioned certificate. And of course, we can then go short, we can go long, we can trade CFDs, we can trade various instruments around this. So then you take the next step and you tokenize those assets into digitalized tokens. But you can then apply that principle to a whole raft. Of course, Mark, we've spoken about NFTs, digital art. We've spoken about, and we've seen that there are companies coming to market which are now taking valuable assets such as old sports cars and digitizing those. So there's a whole raft of and a way of doing things. But of course, that creates a hugely disparate and fragmented marketplace. So what Valerium is doing, it is bringing all this together. It's creating DFMI, or digital financial market infrastructure, which in colloquial terms it refers to as the bridge. And this is a platform as an exchange and marketplace operator, and also a technology solutions provider. So overlaying that market, if you like, there is what is called the gate token, and this is the fuel that drives the Valerium network. It's a token used in the ecosystem, obviously to pay fees, for staking, for burning, for governance, underpins all fee settlement activities, and of course it supports the adoption of digital assets and securities. And this could be, as I say, it could be art, it could be stocks, it could be property, it could be a whole raft of assets. Now, if you think of, I suppose the best parallels I can draw here, we've spoken about the Aquis exchange on many occasions. Of course, Valerium is listed on there. Now Aquis have a number of strings there, but they have the Aquis exchange. Of course, they have the technology on that underpins that, and of course the solutions they provide to other markets. So Valerium, if in a sense, has created a similar structure. And we have, first of all, Valerium Markets, and this is the market that uses the bridge to establish a licensed and regulated stock exchange, from which it can issue and trade tokenized securities and digital assets. And also its plans further down the road to open up real world assets markets, both for primary and secondary trading. And also it's planning to use bulletin boards as places to be able to trade these tokenized assets. And of course, we see a lot of activity on financial bulletin boards. Wind the clock back many years ago, we were one of the pioneers, and that was Share Crazy, which was a financial bulletin board that we sold back in 2007. So bulletin boards have really come of age in terms of the operational facilities they can provide. Then, so you got Valerium Markets. You then got Valerium Technology, which is a full stack tech solution for capital markets to support this primary and secondary trading in public and private markets. Valerium are planning to launch the bridge completely in Q4 this year, and also launch a white label solution as well. So for brokers, for institutions, and other finance houses, they can adopt a white label solution to be able to adopt this tokenization. Then thirdly, they have Valerium Capital, which is an investment vehicle that manages its own funds and also third-party capital, and its growth strategy is based on principal trading in securities and cryptocurrencies, and also yield farming, node operations for third-party blockchains to get involved. So it's a hugely ambitious vision, based of course in Gibraltar, which is where most of the crypto and tech companies are based. The company is chaired by James Formoli, and James has been in the business for many years, 40 years. He's been involved in aviation, property, and investment. And he's key to driving this, as we'll find out shortly. I'm just going to come on to recent news flow. The chief executive is Nick Cowan. Now, Nick was the former chief executive of the GSX Group. That's the Gibraltar Stock Exchange. He was founder of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange. And prior to that, he worked for ING. You've got the Chief Finance Officer, Carl Moss, formerly worked for Sal Group and I2 Group, 30 years experience in the city. Then as non-executive director, you've got Simon Brickles. And Simon has been around for years, known him sort of in London Stock Exchange and AIM days. He's currently chairman of GSX Group. You've also got ex-Nomura, a broker, Gary Cottle on the board as well. So January, we've really seen things start to move for the company. It announced it was working with a company called Materium to what it calls strategically optimize Materium asset passport technology. And this is the technology around taking that asset, whatever it might be, and converting it and tokenizing it. Also in January, it completed the acquisition of GSX Group, and that the acquisition included the proprietary GateNet technology, which was developed by GSX to support issuance and trading and settlement of compliant digital securities and assets. So that really is a massive step forward. So the Gibraltar Stock Exchange and Valereum have now become one entity. And of course, the chief exec at the head of it is the guy that founded the Gibraltar Stock Exchange in the first place. So that's hugely significant in that regard. Then, of course, last month, February, the company announced that the bridge was 95% complete. Will be, and as I said, will be completed this year. It's going to be available as a white label solution, as I've already outlined, for exchanges, marketplace operators, institutions, brokers, and so on. And also to provide what are called CSDs, which are digital registry and settlement systems, because of course tokenize and trade them, that's fine, but of course that process, as you would if you trade with a stockbroker, you've got the back office settlement functions that log and record the transaction. So also very significant during February, the Valereum management have aligned themselves with the shareholders and also the ethos of the entire operation. So shareholders of GSX Group that initially loaned funds to the company have now waived these loans in exchange for gate tokens. So if that isn't a statement of confidence in the future and the offering that Valereum are providing, I don't know what is. The company will be seeking to raise a further 4 million as the year progresses, but James Formoli has already cornerstoned that and agreed to provide 2.5 million. So this is, in terms of its scale, in terms of its ambition, I don't think there's a company that's on the market at the moment with a greater ambition, because this will potentially change the way everyone trades and exchanges assets. And it's hugely exciting. They've got a great future. They're worth only 7 million quid at the moment.
Indeed, and I mean, I spoke to the CEO there just earlier in the week, and they do have big ambitions, as you said, as you just said there, Alan. No other company with bigger ambitions on the market, and they do want to change the way we operate in the financial market world with the exchange there that they're building, with the tokenization of assets, and I mean, it's all sort of happening. They want to get it. Not lots of developments done this year. You got Q4. They want to release their phase 1 of the software, of the technology there, and get that sort of open exchange going early next year. So I mean, they do have big plans, and if it's all in the immediate settlement, tokenization, digitization of assets, then I mean, that's something that still hasn't really been. The financial market, the financial sector, let's say, is still quite old-fashioned in that sense, isn't it? With writing checks and that kind of thing, and settlements in a number of days.
Yeah, it really is old-fashioned, but I mean, we've obviously, we looked at carbon credits, of course, spoken about Aura Technologies, and there are other companies pushing forward with new ideas in this regard, but everyone is heading, the city now is looking forward to this digitization or tokenization of assets, and that is going to be the key going forward. And certainly, I was in a meeting in London last week, and we were just discussing where this is going, and the entire the sea change that's coming. I mean, this is immense. It really is, and I think we've seen what electronic trading has done for the market over the last 25 years or so. This is the next big evolution, I think, for the city. It's going to be even bigger though, because it's going to encompass much more than just stocks. With, as I say, art. So you've got somewhere where the entire economy will be based around. So if you're buying or selling something, invariably, well, it's not inconceivable that in 20 years' time, everything you sell and buy, which is an asset, you could be trading sort of through this platform to do it. It's that's how huge this is. It's so far reaching.
Indeed. Well, thank you for that, Alan. Let's talk now about some mining companies. So who do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's talk about Kavango Resources.
Okay.
I mean, they've had a really seminal week, I think, for as a company. Now, of course, we've spoken about Kavango on a number of occasions previously. The company currently is trading at 0.82 of a pence. Has traded as high as 1.69p on the as low as 0.5p. But shares have really started to move in recent days, and with good reason. So the company is focused in Africa. It's focused in Botswana, where you've got Kavango Minerals Limited, which they own the KSZ, or the Kalahari Suture Zone, where there are a number of licenses and some work has been done. Also the KCB, the Kalahari Copper Belt, where there are 2 licenses, and there Kavango are working with KCB expert and veteran geologist David Catterall, who's vast experience and has huge knowledge of that area. There's also Kavango Resources, which investors might remember, or listeners might remember, was purchased back from Power Metal Resources a year or so ago. It was bought back and was independently valued, Kavango, at about $8 million at the time. This company holds a number of licenses on the KCB and, of course, the Dittel licenses as well. And then the third and the newest company, which is Kavango Zimbabwe, of course, focused in Zimbabwe, where the company has the Hillside and Leopard projects, and also the Nara project. And that's really what's created the drivers and all the excitement over the past week or so. There was also a sea change in the structure of the company last year. The company raised 1.4 million from Pure Bond at a penny then, and Pure Bond, of course, is an investment vehicle, and this company has agreed a potential 6 million investment in a number of tranches, and of course the money has sort of come into the group, so it's enabled them to execute these transactions and go in and take stakes in the assets in Zimbabwe. So as the year has progressed, we've seen in February the company completed some IP surveys, that's induced polarization surveys, across a number of targets at the Hillside project. It also undertook diamond drilling. 4 holes were completed, and of course they were encouraged with the results that came from that. Those results went for assay testing. But significantly here, there are huge tailings deposits and lots of historical workings, and then we moved sort of into March, and I think really the first week in March has created 2 milestone events for Kavango, and of course that's Ben Turney, Brett Grist, and the team. The company announced that the Nara Gold asset, the project tailings dump there was an indicated gold reserve established there of 5,860 ounces. That's an indicated mineral resource estimate of 293,000 tons at 0.62 grams per ton. And Ben Turney, chief executive, said at that point, it's a real milestone moment for the company. For the first time, they've actually established a mineral resource estimate for one of their projects. And I think Ben has really steered the company in a different direction, with engaging with Pure Bond as the backers and investors, and also, of course, the taking the company into Zimbabwe. But then, of course, the biggest step forward, I think, is the announcement on Friday. That's today, where the company has announced that at the Hillside Tailings and gold project, gold production has actually commenced. So this is actually a mine that has produced in the past. The agreement is that Kavango is to fund the cost of the production and will receive 100% of the revenue, and it expects to start booking revenue of some $30,000 per calendar month. That's a huge step forward from what has always been a mining and exploration company. This is a company that has moved from exploration now into production. So Ben and his team should be hugely congratulated for that, because it gets analysts looking at the company in an entirely different light. Of course, it marks it out as a producer from explorer. And the company has also said, Kavango has also said, it's aiming to double production to 1 kilogram of gold per month. It also has an option to fully acquire the Hillside project. Of course, it owns the gold production asset, but it doesn't currently own the Hillside project as a whole. It's got an option to fully acquire that, but the mining contract that they currently have is not contingent on that. So again, all of a sudden, Kavango's evolved from a company that actually needs to raise money to fund its exploration to the point where it can now start to fund that process. It has the backing of Pure Bond, the big investor group, to fund any ongoing production and development. And of course, there's the potential still, once the assays come back from Hillside, further gold may be found there. So if there's a production system, a production infrastructure already in place there, then it'll almost be a plug and play opportunity for Kavango. So this could, I know it could be. I think it's absolutely a turning point for the company. Considering we've been trading at 1.69p, this is back in the middle of last year. The money was raised, and now I think we're starting to see that investment come to fruition. And Ben and the team, I think, look very well set for the rest of the year.
Well, yes. I mean, I only spoke to Ben, well, I think it was last week. Yes, it was, doing a special feature. And we mostly focused on Zimbabwe. It was more on the corporate side of the company, the investment case, let's say. It was what he was talking to potential investors at the Indaba and one-to-one over in South Africa there. And he talked about this getting into swift production and the opportunity that came about. Well, I didn't expect it to take only a week. And they announced something that they're actually in production. I'll be interviewing him later on today, I think, and I did notice a tweet this morning he put out where he talked about how it works, the model, how it works, with these kind of licenses or plots that they have, tributes they're called, and then they have to keep sort of certain mining going, but the opportunity is just not exploited to its full extent just because of lack of capital. And he was basically explaining, I think, that Kavango can come in and really take advantage of that. And he does see a lot of opportunity in Zim. He talked in that special feature a lot about the similarities in geology with Australia, but just comparing how much exploration Australia had for gold versus Zimbabwe. And of course, it's very different with, of course, the history of Zimbabwe, but of course, the further development of Australia and the capital that's there being really a mining country. So that really kind of piqued my interest there, thinking, okay, maybe the opportunity in Zim is very similar to Australia. And it's. I mean, I've said for a while, I think Africa's really the future. It's going to have an awesome future, providing there are good companies going in, there are good governments and good people. It's got such a potential. But yeah, it was great to see this morning that news that they've got into that production. It is, it's 30,000 a year. 30,000 a month revenue at the moment, but they obviously want to increase that and get other projects similar to that to increase the cash flow there. And then, of course, on the other project, the Nara project, the tailings, looking, just under 6,000 ounces there of gold in the indicated category in the tailings there. So they want to be getting into exploiting that as soon as they can to then get into the underground mining. So maybe there is some good low-hanging fruit there. And yeah, I mean, he's moved swiftly. Like you said, he was surprised as well. So yeah. Let's see how he carries on.
Well, I think the most significant development is that all of a sudden Kavango has evolved from a mining exploration company to a company that's producing and backed by Pure Bond. You know that they've got the resource to be able to do that, and that's a really exciting development for investors because you've got production in on an existing mine site. You're able to produce. You're able to ramp up that production and increase the amount of revenue that you're generating from the gold you're producing. At the same time, you're drilling in the area. You're undertaking further work there. So if you're drilling, you can get further gold out of the ground there. Then it's a plug and play solution, and that's there's an opportunity if the assay results come back and they're really strong. There's an opportunity to hugely scale up
Hmm.
the Nara or the Hillside Gold Project, and of course the Nara one, which now has its own mineral resource estimate within, well, given how quickly they brought the Hillside into production, it could be within months. So this is really one to watch, and I think if the gold price remains at the high it is,
Hmm.
that's going to be a real driver for the Kavango share price too.
Well, yeah, like we said at the start, yeah, 21.68 now. It's gone gone up $4 just in the 20 minutes we've been talking. I have a little thing on my desk, and I can't believe, only last week it was like 20.50. I don't know what's going on with gold, but long may it continue. And yeah, hopefully, long may Kavango can continue with what they're doing here and making that model work. And that's not to forget, of course, they've still got the Botswana assets as well and the KCB they want to get on with. So, but yeah, as you say, one to watch. I think definitely with regards to the Zimbabwean opportunity, that's something that's really got my interest going.
Yeah, yeah.
So VVV or Cadence, Alan?
Well, let's just touch on Cadence. Of course, we spoke about Cadence last week and how undervalued it was. Listeners may recall that I covered the Edison investment note, which looked at the Amapa iron ore project before the development yesterday. And Edison have a valuation on the Amapa iron ore project alone of about 15.5 million, which equates to 23 pence. And that's currently that's versus a current share price for Cadence of just over 6p. Now, of course, it's jumped substantially in the last couple of days. So I think it was about 4.5p before the announcement came out yesterday. Now it's 6p. But I mean, these shares should be three, four times. With the company has the other assets. So we have the assets, of course, in at the Sarnavek project. That's the Sarnavek lithium project near to Prague or on the Czech-German border. That's owned by European Metals Holdings, EMH, and Cadence have a stake there. They also have the Sonora lithium assets, and of course, there's an issue with the government there at the moment, but they've hired a lawyer to contest this with the Mexican government. And of course, the company is the largest single shareholder in Evergreen Lithium, which owns a series of lithium assets, hard lithium assets in Australia. One of them is very close to Core Lithium's asset there, which is an asset with a mineral resource estimate. So lots of value there. But the Amapa iron ore project is the developments yesterday are hugely significant. The company's taken a big step forward. Optimization studies were underway, have been for some time to reduce the plant capital expenditure requirements. And I know Kieran and the team are very excited, although the formal announcement's not been made yet. They know they've made substantial savings. In addition, the production flow sheet that the team have put together to produce quality iron ore concentrate, they've improved that from around 62% to 67%. So that will command a higher premium in the marketplace. The environmental licensing program, which is on schedule for completion during 2024, and that includes the mine, the port at Santana, and of course the railway and the beneficiation plant. All of that is in there, and then of course there'll be the permit to recommence mining. Added to this, of course, you've got the Tucano gold mine assets too, which overlap with Amapa, and there could potentially be some very exciting developments too. Now, the company had already signed a memorandum of understanding with Sonoma or TCIDR for debt financing of the definitive feasibility study and completion of the engineering work. That's the engineering and procurement contracts. In addition to that, they've had many expressions of interest from investors to provide the equity financing element to complete the recommissioning process. So really, the announcement yesterday means that they are now on course to get the mine back into production in 2025, and everything's in place to do that. And that is hugely exciting. So the share price has moved a bit, but I mean, the 23p valuation cited by Edison Research was before this happened. So I have no doubt there'll be a note out from Edison in the next month or so, reassessing the value now and just looking at where the value is. But the closer this mine gets to going back into production, I would expect to see the share price really start to accelerate. It is bafflingly undervalued at the moment, and it won't stay here for long.
Okay, thank you, Alan, for a bit of an update there on Cadence. Let's finish off with VVV Resources then.
So VVV Resources, in a sense, it's a mining cash shell. It's an Aquis listed company. The shares are currently trading at 10.5p. That gives it a market capitalization of £709,000. The chairman is Jim Williams. He's a mining industry veteran. He's been in the business for many years. I've known Jim personally for a number of years. And the company has two primary assets. It acquired last year the Mitterberg copper project in the Eastern Alps in Australia. This is some 60 kilometers south of Salzburg. This is nearly 200 contiguous exploration licenses, 90 square kilometers. Now, the area is riddled with evidence of historic copper mining, and obviously the mining has taken place previously up to 1977 when one of the mines closed due to low copper prices. Of course, that's no longer the case, particularly now that copper is a critical metal in the EU. That has completely changed that. And of course, it's makes up, I think, a car, an average internal combustion car uses some 23 kilograms of copper. An EV uses 85 kilograms of copper. So that gives you an idea of the difference. There's a huge amount of difference and a huge amount of additional copper. So so a technical report's been prepared by Reinhard Wagner, who's the geologist, and he's worked on the concessions in 2022, and a work program's been fulfilled to keep the concessions in good standing. By comparison, there's a UK and Austrian company called Ecometal. It's a private company run by Liam Hardy, which operates 4 projects around Salzburg and Tyrol. And the Tyrol, it's adjacent to the Mitterberg copper project, and they have been pulling some very attractive grades out of the ground from some of their projects. They produce they found a 5.1% copper sample from the Astenafern target, and 25% or 25 of 62 samples they took were in excess of 0.5% copper. There's been some other work since then. So at this point, there is believed to be an inferred 45,000 tons of copper, could potentially give it a notional valuation of $360 million. But of course, we had to jump across a lot of hurdles to actually get in and confirm that. But that's based on historical data and yardage. The second asset the company owns is the Shangri-La project, which is in Western Australia, and this is a gold, copper, and silver asset. It's a small asset, but there's an exploration target there of some 30,000 tons. Historical assays from there have pulled out 5.5% copper, just under 9.5% lead, 5% zinc, 22 grams per ton of gold, and 522 grams per ton of silver. And the company owns 51% of the Shangri-La asset, whereas it owns 100% of the Mitterberg project. Now, nothing has happened over the past 6 months, but obviously with copper getting increasingly increasing in value, and of course gold increasing in value, that puts we've seen in the past that so-called dormant projects suddenly come back to life because the market changes, the commodity is now back in demand, and the projects become an economic reality. So lots still has to happen, but VVV is a cash flow at the moment. So if you're looking at taking a bet on what could be a very exciting project, particularly in Austria, then look at VVV Resources on Aquis.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Alan. We covered a few companies there, but thank you very much for that. So, well, I do hope the weather continues as we talked about, and yeah, have a nice weekend, and let's catch up next week.
Thanks, Mark. You too. Let's catch up next week.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like, or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.